Spa-Francorchamps. From 1950, this hallowed circuit has been part of the F1 World Championship calendar. It is one of the most iconic and evocative in all our sport, and the backdrop for moments of both triumph and tragedy. And now it hosts round 13 of the 2025 season. 8 points is all that separates Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris in the standings. It's a sprint weekend. It's the first race for Red Bull without Christian Horner. And guess what? It's just been raining pretty heavily in Spa. We have got a bumper team to bring you all the action here at the midpoint of the season. Alex Jacques, your lead commentator, your lead analyst, former Renault driver Jolyon and racing car driver Alex Brundle alongside me. Alex, 8 points is all that separates our top two, and we're here in Spa. It doesn't get much better, does it?
What a great place to try and separate them. The longest Grand Prix venue of the year. Such an evocative place, this. And as these fans know extremely well, weather can change on a dime here. If there's not a jacket in every single one of these bags, I'll be surprised. So it's an incredible place for motorsport.
Jolyon and I have had a bit of a shunt in not bringing a rain jacket to Spa with a very wet forecast ahead. Hats off to all of you behind for braving the conditions to stand in the pit lane behind us. It's a sprint weekend as well, so not only will conditions be tricky out there, they have such limited time, Jolyon, don't they, to set these cars up?
It's an amazing track, one that you can overtake on, one you can get things really right, but also quite badly wrong. And the stakes are higher on a sprint weekend as well. Like you say, just one practice, points already coming on Saturday morning, and then the Grand Prix here in changeable conditions. I love a bit of Spa.
And what is it about this track, Alex Jacques, this place that evokes so much within Formula One history and fans' minds and hearts?
It's one of the sport's original stages. I think it's one of the reasons that drivers want to get into professional motor racing in the first place. It's a place where you can define your greatness. We've seen that time and time again in F1 history.
Typically, when you see a heavy rain forecast on the horizon, you think, oh, we're going to get wet doing our jobs. After Silverstone last time out, I am delighted to see yet more rain forecast, a mixed forecast, and potentially wet to dry come race day. It's been wet today. It's not looking too bad Friday or Saturday. I tell you what, though, Sunday at the moment is looking pretty wet. We have got umbrellas on standby here. Don't you worry, they are just in the background. Cameras are covered up as well, and floor producers have got Max on too. Let's, though, throw back before we look ahead to the Silverstone race recap. This is the British Grand Prix.
We meet again at Silverstone as Formula One returns to the venue where it all began.
So everyone's starting on intermediate tyres, but I'm looking at this and the track's quite dry.
Russell, Leclerc, they've rolled the dice. And the British Grand Prix is go! They crawl from the line and Oscar Piastri has the traction. Max Verstappen hangs on to the race lead from pole position.
Who the hell was that?
That's heavy contact. Piastri thriving in these mixed conditions.
Verstappen really struggling on those tyres.
Piastri just has to pick his moment. Piastri takes the lead. The rain comes pouring down. It is biblical. Oh, they made contact.
I just rear-ended the car in front.
I didn't see it. Safety car is ending.
This is suddenly so stop.
10-second penalty for Oscar Piastri. Max Verstappen spins round and loses places. Hulkenberg goes through to a podium position.
Someone's going to pit for slicks. Let's go for it. Everyone thinks this is the right time.
10-second wait for Piastri. Lando Norris leads. And George Russell goes round at huge speed. What an intense British Grand Prix. Lando Norris wins.
This is a dream, winning at home.
Nico Hulkenberg, podium finisher in Formula One. What an enthralling Grand Prix.
I'll remember this more than anything.
What a weekend. We thought the 2024 British Grand Prix couldn't be topped. And then we had that last weekend. What a podium it was. An emotional home win for Lando Norris, one he said he would swap everything else for. You then had a first-time podium for Nico Hulkenberg after 239 race starts. And of course, Oscar Piastri, so frustrated with that 10-second penalty. Alex Brundle, you weren't with us. We wish you had been, because what a weekend it was. What was your reaction to that race and the Oscar Piastri penalty, the fight, the momentum that is swinging both ways in the McLaren camp?
I think a really harsh penalty for Oscar Piastri, firstly. 8 points in the championship, obviously. A demonstration of where McLaren are at the moment. They had pace in the wet. They had pace in the dry. They had pace in all sessions, made the right decisions throughout, even with the curveball of that Piastri penalty affecting how they could stop the cars through the race. It was truly impressive, those two McLarens, and both drivers performing, barring that moment for Piastri, without any mistakes whatsoever.
Jolyon, your analysis summed up what Brundle's just said then. You didn't believe it was a penalty, or it was a very harsh one for Oscar Piastri. How does he bounce back here then?
I mean, it's a track that he's good at, he likes, and so he's got to put it to the back of his mind. He's had a couple of weeks off now, so I think in some ways you want to bounce back straight away when you have a disappointment like that. So maybe he'd be left stewing on it, but I don't believe Oscar Piastri stews on anything. I think he would have been able to put that behind him, and I think this place is a good one for him to come back to. You know, he had his first ever sprint pole position here in his first year. He was on the podium again last year, was running with that front pack ahead of Lando. So I think he'll be putting that to the back of his mind and thinking, right, I need to get that momentum back in my direction.
Well, the news coming into this weekend is very much Christian Horner and Red Bull, Alex Jacques. I think is it fair to say we were shocked at the timing of it? It seemed the rumours that we'd heard in Imola, that race weekend, for example, had gone quiet, but not surprised, perhaps, at the departure of Christian Horner and the team parting ways with him.
Well, they've only had one team principal in the entire team history. Came in 2005, and he's been in charge the entire time. So it's a brand new era for them. But as you say, there has been chatter, there has been whispers in the paddock, and we know that things have not been happy internally at that team for a sustained period of time. But this week becomes a brand new era for this team that, with Max Verstappen, has been ultra competitive around here in recent times.
Yeah, he really has. And look, I think a fair few out there are saying, or are surprised, he wasn't let go last year surrounding the controversy. It's happened, though, this year. It's happened mid-season. For Red Bull, within a team, within the garage, what is the atmosphere like with the departure of such a key figure from the team?
I think it's the final phase of a disintegration of a group, really, with Horner. You obviously had Marshall to McLaren, then you had Wheatley making his way to Sauber that will become Audi, and then, of course, Horner really the last domino to fall of that. I think it'll be a very different team with Laurent Mekies in charge of it. You know, we're so used to a political, continuous, relentless Red Bull under Christian Horner's style, in the style of the team that he built. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how the character of the team now changes with Laurent Mekies taking the helm.
Jolyon, is there a feeling within the paddock, generally within the world of Formula One, that the removal of Christian Horner from the team was in a way a bid to keep hold of Max? Is it a bit of a Hail Mary?
Well, you've got to wonder why it was so sudden and so kind of blindsiding for everyone, not only us in the paddock, but Christian himself didn't see this one coming. And he was on pole with Max at Silverstone. I know Red Bull have fallen away, but they've fallen away from the headiest heights Formula One's pretty much ever seen with that 2023 season. So they were always going to be dropping back a little bit. Obviously, this year it's gone back a little bit more, but Max is still competitive very often, as he told us on Saturday at Silverstone. So you've got to wonder why, within 2 days, he's gone, having done 20 years at Red Bull, been there since the inception, won the titles. He is a punchy character, always. You know, he is coming out swinging for everything he can get in terms of performance and team and everything. So for him to go in that manner, you wonder if there's, obviously the team was falling away and there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes there, but Max is also in these negotiations potentially with Mercedes for a seat. You wonder if there's something going on there. Either way, it's very unusual for a team principal that's been at a team for 20 years, had so much success, to just be ushered out in the middle, not even in the summer break, in the middle of the season.
There must be a catalyst somewhere in the team. It's just we're not privy to that catalyst, are we? Sometimes those things are out in the open. We see them in the press. Sometimes the catalysts just happen behind closed doors, and this appears to be one of those times.
Yeah, I asked Max earlier on how long he had known that Christian Horner was departing, was leaving the team, and what impact it would have on his future. I also spoke to Yuki Tsunoda as well. This is what they had to say.
Probably maybe half a day before it came out. And yeah, I mean, that was it, management told me about it. And then, life has to go on because, course, we had the 2-week break, so there were, of course, from team side, a lot of things going on. But at the same time, I already had, basically like a week planned of holidays. So in a way, it was also good just to reflect on the first bit of the season, and just come back here and just go again, try to be better.
Well, Yuki, it's been a busy 2 weeks in the Red Bull camp. You'll be working with Laurent Mekies again. How much is that a bit of a fresh start for you? How do you feel you can progress in that second Red Bull seat with your old team principal?
Yeah, with him we have already good relationship. We had a past that we worked together, and I know how exactly how he works and how much things that he can bring into our team. So I'm excited to work with him, obviously. I just entered the paddock with him, and he was also excited, and he said he missed me, so that's very good.
Yuki Tsunoda then and Laurent Mekies are reunited at Red Bull, and you have to question if this will be a bit of a shot in the arm for Yuki Tsunoda and for that second Red Bull seat, and whether it will become a two-car team once again. Because without Max Verstappen and his points haul this season, they would currently be P10. Nico Hülkenberg has outscored Red Bull over the last 4 races. It doesn't make pretty viewing, and it's an uphill challenge for Laurent Mekies coming in to that role, and Alan Permain, of course, stepping up to team principal at Racing Bulls. Right. Alex Brundle, you are going to be heading now to talk us through a pole lap from Max Verstappen. He loves it around here, doesn't he, from 2024?
Who doesn't love it around Spa-Francorchamps? 7 kilometres and 20 corners, squaring off that last of those 20 in intermediate conditions, of course. Last year, to take pole position, he would start the Grand Prix 11th after taking engine penalties. The slow apex of La Source with the gravel trap added on the outside back in 2022. It's then 22 seconds of flat out running down through turns 3, 4 and 5. Eau Rouge, 310 kilometers per hour at the base, and you pop out over the top, still accelerating, having lost 10 kilometers per hour through pure scrub through the middle of the corner, up to 320 kilometers per hour on the braking point for Les Combes. It's 4th gear, just over motorway speed through the second part, even in these intermediate conditions. Malmedy is the right-hander. Max Verstappen staying slightly wide of the apex before charging the apex of the Brussels hairpin, letting the Red Bull run wide, using that grip on the outside line, and in the slightly drier section through the exit down through Speaker's Corner. Turn 9 will be the next one that Max Verstappen has to attack, and it's a downhill run then, all the way through Pouhon, slightly wide of the apex, still 260 kilometers per hour, even in intermediate conditions for Verstappen to take pole last year. 14 and 15, called interchangeably Piff Paff and the Fagnes chicane, are all about the apex speed, 220 kilometers per hour on the exit, and you'll cross the river of Eau Rouge once more. That gives the famous section its name, through the mid-corner of Stavelot. Another long run then, down through curve Paul Frere, on the way to a flat-out wet or dry Blanchimont Pink, with one more braking zone and 2 more slow apexes to characterise the lap. Car bottoms out through the compression of Blanchimont. It's a big break, slightly offline for Verstappen. That final catch-all braking zone, 65 kilometers per hour at the apex, points the car straight, line comes up early, and it's all about traction then for those final few meters of the longest racing lap of the year.
What a track it is. Thank you so much, Alex Brundle, for talking us through that one. Are you getting out trackside tomorrow?
I cannot wait to go and stand right at the base of Eau Rouge tomorrow. One of my favourite spots of the year.
It's magical. It's one of my favourite tracks as well. We welcome in Lawrence Barretto. You've been very busy with interviews, haven't you? We've got feature interviews with Mekies and Permain coming on Sunday, right?
And Yuki as well. Yeah.
Oh, and Yuki Tsunoda. You come at just the right time to talk about Max Verstappen's future.
My favourite subject.
Exactly. Where may he be through 2026 and beyond? What impact do you feel Christian Horner leaving the team will have on that decision as well?
I think Max has been really clever when he's talked to the media today and not really obviously given any answers away. But even when people say, what impact did Christian have on him leaving, he's gone, well, nothing really. But that doesn't tell us whether or not that means nothing he's going to stay or nothing he's going to go. I think if you talk to people within the paddock, maybe within the team themselves, it seems like next year he's going to be at Red Bull. I think the question now is becoming, where is he going to be from 2027 onwards? And I think that might be why maybe George Russell's demeanour today was slightly more jovial. the Austrian stressful weekend that he had, where it looked like he thought he was going to lose the seat, seems to have egged away. So it feels like it's moving in a direction where Max is going to stay put at least for next year. And now the conversations that we will have is, what does the 2027 driver market look like?
But fans out there have been very busy tracking Max Verstappen's jet. And I was quite tempted in the pen earlier on, I tried to keep it professional, to ask him how Sardinia was, because there are reports that both Toto Wolff and Max Verstappen were in Sardinia for some 5 hours or so, some sort of meeting. So do we really think that this Mercedes talk is dead?
I know the guy's fast, but a 7-hour holiday is bliss.
Yeah, that's crazy. The smart thing to do is to have a contract option, get to 2026 and see change the regulations, see who's fastest, and pick a team that's definitely going to win. And so, might be something along those lines, we just don't know. But it would make sense. If he stays put for 2026, might seem strange given they're slipping back. He's 69 points back in the World Championship, but he might know the competitive picture for 2027, might get more wins as a result in his career.
And also, if they are talking about 2027, of course they're going to be talking now. So if they were talking on their boats in Sardinia, it doesn't mean necessarily they have to be talking about 2026. Drivers are looking 2, 3, 4, 5 years in advance of what they're doing.
Well, when you think of some of the biggest driver moves in F1 history, remember Fernando Alonso, when he was champion with Renault, signed for McLaren, already looking ahead to 2007. Think about Lewis Hamilton, signed for Ferrari at the start of last year. So they are definitely thinking not only 26, but 27. So it makes sense. And it's uncomfortable either way, isn't it, for Kimi and George at Mercedes? Because you're like, oh, maybe I'll get another year's grace and then we'll repeat these conversations at some point.
I think what we're seeing, though, is this next set of regulations is such a curveball, actually, that committing, and we've seen some of those driver moves you just described, drivers take a punt on a team where you think, wow, that's a brave move. Lewis Hamilton to Mercedes is the obvious one. But it's such a curveball that actually waiting at Red Bull, seeing if pace and performance materialises that we weren't necessarily expecting, and then maybe pulling the trigger on Mercedes the next year is not a bad move for Verstappen.
So fans out there looking for a bombshell move and a Max Verstappen press conference here in Spa will be disappointed by your opinions, I think. But perhaps the realistic
I wouldn't even rule anything out, to be honest, with the way that there's definitely... it's pretty open that there's conversations going, but will the bombshell be for this year? Remember when Lewis Hamilton signed last year? It was a January bombshell, but we were getting 14 months ahead of ourselves, but it was still big news. So if the bombshell is for 27, it will still be a bombshell if Max leaves Red Bull.
But in which case, why have we not heard any news yet of George Russell's contract, do we think?
Because I think there is no rush, is there? Like, Toto doesn't need to bolt down either of them yet. If, for whatever reason, Max decides, I'm going to come next year, there's just no rush. He's got 2 drivers, whatever happens. And then Max is kind of there or thereabouts if he wants to come.
But put yourself in George Russell's shoes. He has been driving so well this year. He's in the team. He's been quite well ahead of Kimi. He doesn't want to do a 1-year deal either. If he wants to be renewed at Mercedes, this was part of the whole thing. And for Hamilton didn't want to have a 1-year deal. Didn't feel like he was being shown enough respect in that negotiation with Toto. And if now you're George, you know that there's this hovering over. He's going to think, can I do more than just a 1 year and really cement myself here?
But the problem is, if there is no other option, what do you do? In the way that Bottas always used to sign 1-year deals at Mercedes, if that's all that's offered, it's not like there's a load of seats elsewhere.
Well, what if Max doesn't come for next year?
Well, then George just takes next year, and then he has the option, and if Max doesn't come the next year, then he just stays on at Mercedes. That's kind of just the way it has to be, though.
Mercedes do have form on this in general as well, though, running the drivers late into the year. And I agree with you, Palm. What's the point in committing if they can if George has no other options, and they can let it run and see what plays out through the end of the season?
OK, what about Alpine? Because much has been made of Franco Colapinto's future. First it was 5 race, then it was a 1-by-1 race basis. He's still here in Belgium with us. Do we know any more about Alpine, that seat, the Bottas talks at the British Grand Prix?
I think it's a similar sort of thing there, where they're in not an immediate rush. I think it would be different if they had a car that was really fighting at the sharp end of the points, or even guaranteed to be fighting at the points every weekend. I think it's clear that Flavio and the team like Franco. They like the whole package that he brings. He's had a bit of a bad run of it of late, I think, so giving him the opportunity here in Hungary going on, I think it's great. Bottas has obviously been linked with that team at Alpine, but actually I think the more likely landing spot for him is Cadillac, and we haven't talked about them yet, but I hear that they haven't got any contracts done, not even any head of terms, But Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas are the two drivers that they want at that team, and it's just a case of them going through the motions of it. So it might be some time until we find that out, and obviously there is still some time that could change, but that's where we're looking, I think.
No one wants to do any paperwork, do they? Everyone wants to just enjoy the season and not do any contract work.
So you're nailing your colours to the mast right now. You would say it's a Valtteri Bottas, Sergio Perez lineup for our
Yeah, that's where I think it's going. That's where I think it's going,
Right.
which makes sense because maybe Valtteri could use the Alpine interest to maybe get a better deal at Cadillac going forward. But it makes sense. They want experience in that car, and I think those two drivers offer that in bags.
The racing on track this year has been brilliant, but I also love all that goes on off track as well. It's just great to see. OK, let's hear then from Charles Leclerc. Ferrari, of course, bringing that upgrade to the rear suspension here. Will it help their fortunes?
Hey Charles, great to see you. Obviously we came from a really difficult weekend last time out at Silverstone to a track that I know you loved and had quite a lot of success. How are you feeling, especially after that little Mugello test as well?
I'm feeling good. Yeah, obviously, I mean, there are some weekends that are off during a season, and Silverstone was definitely one of them. Unfortunately, with the team, we're working really, really hard in order to try and turn the situation around on wet weather because our car is unbelievably difficult to drive in those conditions, and it's also interesting now to have Lewis's experience coming from another team, so there's a lot of work in the background on that to try and turn the situation around because it's a very difficult situation to be in and to be driving in with the car that we have at the moment. But it's a good track here. I love it. I've had reasonable amount of success in the past here. At least I was competitive every time I come here, so I'm happy to be back on track and I'm looking forward to have a good weekend.
Great stuff, good luck, thanks.
I don't think Ferrari will have been happy to see the forecast because it seems, Jolyon, that car has some issues, some difficulties in driving in the wet. Do we know where that's coming from?
Not really, to be honest, but it didn't look great at Silverstone, did it? And we often see Charles trying to take the gamble in the wet, which is exactly what he did at Silverstone, and it just didn't play out. But I'm fascinated to see what their upgrade, the rear suspension package does, because I think they grossly underperformed at Silverstone. I think both of their drivers could have been on the front row. And that was the dry. That was the floor upgrade that they brought to Austria that's working, and Silverstone's a really fast-flowing circuit, so Spa. So even before you add a suspension upgrade, that car should be quick around here now.
They've been trying all year to get that car running as low as it should be. And that's what they had a stab at it back in Imola to try to get more ride height control. That's what they're saying this suspension package is all about. Must be tantalising, mustn't it? You know that there's loads of performance down close to the ground, but you can't get the car to actually run where you want in the window. The difficulty that they've got this weekend, though, is it's a sprint weekend. So they've got to try and get all of that work done firstly before sprint qualifying. They've then got another opportunity, of course, when Parc Fermé opens again after the sprint race.
They have fallen foul of it before, haven't they? Double DQ in China, Jolyon?
Yeah, and there's Eau Rouge. So trying to set up your ride height anyway is difficult when your plank's already just skimming out through Eau Rouge, bottoming out through the compression. So Austin and China, these are the difficulties when you have the sprint format. So it's what they're trying to do, lower the ride height, but how much they dare do it on week one with the upgrade.
Tyres. Pirelli have done what they've been threatening to do. I quite enjoy the Pirelli versus the teams narrative that we're seeing, where Pirelli are trying all they can to force the teams into more difficult strategic decisions. Here, they have skipped a compound, haven't they? We've got the C4, the C3, and the C1. So what does this mean?
I think it's going to be an interesting one. So on the simulation, the Pirelli C1 is a second off the pace in terms of the other two. They're trying to force teams onto the softer compounds of tyre. Although even on the Pirelli simulation that they've given us, there's a very, very leery soft to medium one stop, which I think is a bit brave. It's a high energy circuit, this one. I think trying to generate stops through the race. Going to be really interesting if indeed we do have a full dry race, which I think, looking at the forecast, is unlikely.
And they're doing all of this with such limited time through practice as well, because it's a sprint weekend. It's an uphill battle for the teams here in Spa and for those who are bringing upgrades, of course. Williams, we're going to talk about the P5 battle now. Such a bright start to the season, Alex, and it's just begun to fall away. Points for Alex Albon in Silverstone. Where do you see them sitting here this weekend? It's typically a very slippery car, isn't it, that's hard to pass on a straight.
Yeah, we've talked about that in previous years. I thought Carlos Sainz was slightly downbeat in the press conference earlier on, saying that they missed their big opportunity earlier in the year when it came to Imola, when it came to Miami, and basically they're just focusing on 2026 now, aren't they? All eyes on what could be as they try to vault forward from the midfield to the front with the big regulation change. And I felt that from his answers. He was a little bit deflated. He was like, yeah, we've kind of missed our best chances.
In the fight now for P5, we have a newcomer. We have a surprise, Sauber. What a brilliant run they have had since that upgrade in Spain. Your old mate, Nico Hülkenberg, with that terrific result last time out. Can this continue, this trajectory? I remember speaking to him a few races back, and he was like, oh, this is just points on one occasion. I was a bit lucky. Then it was points again. Then it was points again. And then it was a podium. Are we talking about a Nico Hülkenberg win this weekend?
I think it's going to be really tricky to keep it up, to be honest, for Nico. The thing is he's got to qualify better, because they've been doing such great stealth drives, particularly with Hülkenberg, who's been struggling a little bit in qualifying, but he's been coming through. Silverstone was just experienced and, you know, mastered behind the wheel, but calling the strategy right, and that's what they've been doing so well. But now I feel like they're in 6th in the championship. Williams are looking over their shoulders. Williams might not have been covering off a Sauber in the first half of the year, thinking it's Sauber. They're at the back of the field. Maybe we'll still look towards Racing Bulls or Aston Martin for our threats. Now, when Hülkenberg does a really early pit stop, if Williams are still out qualifying them, they'll start covering them off, so they might make their life a little bit harder.
Yeah, it's definitely been, points collection by execution, hasn't it, from Sauber? When you look into the data, they're 0.6 of a second off still at a straight line.
Yeah, execution's been amazing.
Yeah, unbelievable. Williams, we're hearing Alex Albon dropped it in the pen earlier on today, are going to bring a final upgrade of the year here. It's something that they developed much earlier on, in a final effort to try to cling on to P5. So we'll see if that does anything for them.
I just think Sauber have got to, or I think Nico really particularly, actually. I'm surprised how much he's struggled with Bortoleto. I just think they're going to have to qualify better, because these big Sunday drives, it's difficult to keep up that level of execution for the second half.
Okay, we'll look further down then. We've got Alpine, Haas and Aston Martin as well. Aston Martin are reportedly bringing a big component upgrade. They haven't exactly said what. We'll find out overnight. Document released tomorrow. We'll bring you all of that from the pit lane through our one practice session. It's a brave thing to do on a mixed forecast sprint weekend. Where do you think it can put them? What can it do? Because they desperately need a bit of something, a shot in the arm. Yeah,
I mean, Lance Stroll had a strong race at one point of the British Grand Prix and then slipped back and then was very, very frustrated on the lap back to the pits. Fernando Alonso in the dry with one lap pace has been outstanding since they updated that car before in Imola. So any performance is good performance, and when you've got a varied weekend. We saw last year with Alpine how one wet race can change your entire year.
Yeah, very true. Alpine then, on them. Anyone care to take their chances for the weekend?
I mean, Pierre Gasly's been in more than half the Q3s this year.
Yeah,
when you look at actually the pace that Gasly can get out of that car. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a mixed-up weekend. In terms of Haas, they'll be delighted to have been up in Q3 with Behrman, but they really spilled it in the race, didn't they? So they on the flip side have to execute as they didn't at Silverstone.
Final thoughts for Haas as well. Obviously, coming together at Silverstone, a near perfect synchronised pirouette, but certainly not one they'll be proud of through that weekend.
Yeah, it was a day where almost every team scored apart from Haas. So when you're seeing even Gasly in their Alpine that looks so difficult, getting good points, Albon was there, of course, Hülkenberg. Haas are then thinking this has not gone well. But as we just covered off, the pace was still there. Behrman was flying. Just got to know the red flag rules and get it right, and then he'll be more competitive through the weekend. And the midfield is everyone basically, other than the top four teams. They're all capable of scoring points on any given weekend. We saw that with Gasly at Silverstone. Through 3 hours of practice, they looked terrible. And even Pierre came on the show afterwards and said this was going to be an awful weekend. And he got it into Q3 on merit in the dry and put together a great race in the wet. Anyone is capable of it. And Haas here, they can definitely bounce back.
And for Pierre Gasly, of course, here in Belgium Spa, an emotional weekend ahead following the tragic passing of Antoine Hubert in 2019. And the run for Antoine will be taking place very soon, actually, out on track. Jolyon, are you doing that?
You know what?
Go on.
When it was raining, I thought I had a really good excuse. No, the sun's come out, so I better get the runners on.
It's one of the most magical experiences to run this track, so you've got to do it. Beyond that, let's take a look at the schedule for the Belgian Grand Prix weekend. And it's a sprint weekend, so things look a little different to our normal Grand Prix proceedings. FP1, 12:15 building up to that one. That is the one solitary hour of practice. Sprint qualifying comes at 4:15 for our pre-show, 4:30 for a slightly truncated form of qualifying, and then on to Saturday. And it's always bizarre that you're standing on the grid at about 11 a.m. on a Saturday morning, but that's a sprint weekend. Sprint race starts at 12 p.m, the post-sprint show with all the reaction, and then into the Grand Prix weekend itself, the pre-qualifying show for you at 3:30, qualifying at 4, all the reaction afterwards, and Sunday, the pre-race show at 2 p.m. and a 3 p.m. start for your Belgian Grand Prix, and the post-race show here on F1 TV and YouTube immediately afterwards. Okay, it feels like this is a McLaren weekend, and we're saying that as they are the outright favourites for this season and runaway leaders at the moment in the championship standings, certainly for the constructors. It's 8 points between the two of them, and where will the momentum swing this weekend? Gentlemen, your predictions?
We've just come off a Hulkenberg podium and we're going to try and predict the order when it's going to rain in Belgium. Yes. Cool. Yeah. Good luck, Alex.
You're first.
Oh, good luck, Alex, again. If it's dry, a low downforce for Verstappen on pole. Over a race distance, I think Norris takes it here. I think that, I don't think that the Red Bull's going to be able to put it together through a changeable race. If it's wet, McLaren walk it.
McLaren, which driver?
Oh, goodness me. Piastri.
It's an Oscar Piastri win, takes back a little bit of the momentum. Jolyon Palmer?
I just fancy Max this weekend. I know there's a lot of talk about the team principal changing, but I don't think it's going to change the race team week on week. And Max is so good around this circuit. It's a circuit that should suit the Red Bull car anyway. And the pole up he did in the wet was amazing last year that you've already talked about. So I think Max wins. And I'm going to put a
Red Bull race pace in the rain.
Yeah, but he was running low downforce at Silverstone, whereas the others had high. Everyone's going to be on a similar level of trimmed, and I think on that trim downforce, the car's good. And look, I'm going to be wrong, but I'm going to back it right now and say Max wins with a McLaren and a Ferrari second and third.
You've done well here to go third, having listened to their thoughts.
I agree with Palmer. I think Max is going to win.
Wow.
And I think it will be Oscar, and then I think it will be Lando.
Was it a full house for a Max Verstappen prediction? I'm going to say it's an Oscar Piastri win with Lando P2 and Max Verstappen P3. And you can see how wrong we are. On Sunday, it's a wet race in Spa. Just about anything can happen. It'll be a nightmare for F1 fantasy as well. Okay, guys, that is it. Thank you so much to Lawrence Barretto, who's run off to do another interview. Busy man today. Jolyon Palmer, Alex Jacques, Alex Brundle. That was your weekend warm-up. This is the Belgian Grand Prix. It's a sprint weekend and we have so much to bring you. We will see you tomorrow for our one solitary hour of practice you don't want to miss a second. See you then.
It's time for one of the originals.
Drivers will forever be lured to the challenge of Spa.
And the Belgian Grand Prix is go! Oh, it's total chaos! This is Eau Rouge. Listen to the speed. How about that? Oh, they made contact. Now it really is gloves off. For the first time in Formula One, Charles Leclerc wins. Max Verstappen wins. Utter domination. The 7-time world champion to the race lead.
That's what I'm talking about, guys. That's what I'm talking about.